That's my mission. Because if I'm worried about keeping my job, then I'm not doing my job. And by the way, I can play guitar, so what can I say? Fire me tomorrow, no me muero de hambre. But I will never stop talking about what the conditions are. And you can't either. So I would very strongly say to you, this is our moral imperative. And if you look at how the United States is developing and how the United States is growing demographically, it also makes sense why there may be some angst. Because the positions of leadership are no longer the same positions of leadership. Did you realize that the 8 largest school districts in the state of Texas are now led by Latino superintendents? The 8 largest. And I'm not happy about that because there's not a Latina yet. But think about what that says in the great state of Texas. So am I going to shy away from that and say I'm Richard Carranza? No, Richard Carranza. Sorry. My message is, let's be bold. Let's be really bold. And where some of our brothers and sisters who, because of bureaucratic regulation, don't yet have their citizenship or their permanent residency, where I can understand why some of them may be a little fearful. Look, I'm a United States born citizen. I'm a citizen by birth. I can vote, and I do vote. And I can think, and I do think. And by the way, tengo boca. So it's incumbent on us to go out there and tell our story. It's incumbent upon us to weave a narrative about how this is good for public education. And by the way, it's also incumbent on us to not do what we typically do, us against each other. It's about us uniting and having this front where we go forward and we say, yeah, this is what we want. And by the way, yes, we are Americans. And yes, very proud Americans. But yes, we have a history too. And my history wasn't on the Mayflower. My history was in Aztlán. Right? Just my take. Thanks for being here.
Questions, anyone? Any of my students have any questions? I did have a sort of a question because, first of all, let me recognize my wife, Dr. Giselle Cano. I think she's back here somewhere, who has worked in organizing Mexican-American and Latino studies at the Houston Community College. Stand up, please. Mi amorcita. But the question is, I think, although it's different, I think there are implications for the community colleges as well. And this is what I wanted to ask, because many of us, although I don't want to deviate too much from the public school focus, I think we need to understand that what we're talking about here does not end in the 12th grade. But this is my opinion, but I was going to ask you if you could comment on that, because I think we have a really high dropout rate in the community colleges, and working together, I think we can improve that.
Yes, I think it's really, Dr. Cano. By the way, you recognize your wife. I've got to recognize my wife. So I want to recognize my wife, Monique Garcia, who actually almost has a master's in Chicano studies. So I think you're absolutely right. We tend to think of ourselves in segmented portions when we think about the trajectory of a student. So while I can speak to very passionately the pre-K-12, because that's my responsibility, I also recognize and actually appreciate the fact that we have to have these longer conversations, these broader conversations with the entire continuum. My dream is that a student can see a pathway from their pre-K-12 education through a community college, through a university, to their PhD, if that's what they want to pursue. And we paint that picture so clearly that students understand that academia is part of their trajectory. Now, in order to do that, again, it means that we have to not be territorial. So we've been working quite a bit, Dr. Maldonado and I, with the community college, been working quite a bit. We've been working together as well. Dr. Olivas and I have been working quite a bit as well to start painting that articulation pathway of what it'll look like for our students. And quite frankly, what that's going to look like for our teachers. My dream is that if we have teachers that are teaching Mexican American studies in HISD, that at some point, because because they have the credential, we can have them become adjunct faculty at the community college so that our students are getting dual credit for taking some of these courses. You see, again, solidifying and making it concrete within our curriculum that this is part of what we do to educate our students. And while I may be talking about Mexican American studies, Chicano studies here today, I've had the same conversation around African American studies. And I think we have to have the same conversation around women's studies. Because you want to talk about one of the most discriminated groups to this day, it's women. In economics, it's in power, it's in opportunity. Look at what happened to whether you like her or not. I'm not into that. I could care less about the political viewpoints, but you can't tell me that Hillary Clinton didn't have a good amount of opposition simply because she was a woman wanting to run for president. So women's studies courses are incredibly important as well. LGBTQ courses are very important as well. So I think it's important to recognize who we are as a fabric of America. And I'll tell you, you look at the community college system and you look at the university system, there's a lot of great research and a lot of great I mean, I wish I could go back to school because I would learn a heck of a lot more now. Because they're very interesting and they're very relevant to what we're doing. So I think that's critical.
Thank you. Oh, here we have the meeting. I'm not going to have to jog today, half a mile.
All right. I just wanted to ask if HRC was planning to get a group of teachers and curriculum specialists together to kind of create that centralized idea. I'm sorry. Implementing these courses, and how can we sign up for it?
That's great. So the plan is absolutely yes. So with full disclosure, this is 7.5 months on the job. So learning kind of where all the pieces are, but we do have an incredible opportunity as we go forward in proposing a budget for our school board. I've talked to our board members. In fact, you're going to see 2 of our board members later today on the panel. We're going to talk about how committed they are to this movement. Our Chief Academic Officer, Dr. Grenita Lathan, and I have talked about this. She's pulling and reorganizing her department around being able to go forward with a culturally relevant pedagogy. One of our ethos in the central office is that we will always have teacher voice whenever we're developing this. So it's going to be very simple. When the time comes, we're going to send out notices and ask people that are interested. We also have present with us today, and I don't want to embarrass her, but Dr. Gracie Guerrero, who's in charge of our multilingual program. She's incredibly interested in this kind of an approach as well. So you might want to let her know who you are as well. Y tiene café también, por decir, come on. But let Dr. Guerrero know as well that you're interested. That goes for all teachers. Because we do want this to be heavily influenced by teachers. We want the classroom perspective and those fingerprints to be all over what we develop. This is our curriculum. This is going to be our approach, so we want it to be ours.
What would you say to administrators or leaders who are hesitant to give teachers that control over such a program?
Well, if they're in HISD, I would say get on board.
I'm actually from Dallas.
Dallas. Well, what I would say to teachers is you build a case. I think you're going to hear, when you hear from Professor D later today, and the study, I would show that study and the results of the study, because how do you argue with the fact that you have students that are supposed to not be able to do well in school or are not on a path to do well in school that by their participation have kind of turned themselves around? That's very powerful for any administrator. I would also tell teachers that there's nothing more powerful than the power of teachers in community, so that if you find like-minded colleagues that also have an orientation in that regard, to band together and say, look, we're willing to be held accountable, but this is what we need to be held accountable. You know, as a principal, I always loved when teachers would come to me with an idea